Okay, so welcome everybody. So today we have a very interesting presentation about adding interactivity to Pressbooks using H5P. And our presenter is Michelle vanGinneken. And I'll just let Michelle take it away.
Great, thank you. My name is Michelle vanGinneken, and I work for the Center for Continuing Education, more specifically flexible learning. And I do see some names that are familiar and some that are not, so welcome. I thought before, I really wanted to hit 20, so there is an invite button for, if you click on participants and just send that off. But in seriousness, I was wondering maybe you could start with a bit of a icebreaker. If you could click on the chat down below, because I notice everyone has their mics off. If you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself, or Isaac and I will be checking chat if there's any questions in the chat. But before we get started, just so that everyone can find the chat, if you want to click chat, I know everyone's been using Zoom, so let's make this fun. If there is a hobby that you renewed an interest in during COVID, type it in the chat and I will type mine. No renewed interests. Oh, crochet. Okay. Sewing, bread making. I know I was working on an economics class, and that was, quite a lot of examples there. Maybe when I'm retired. Yeah, that's true too. Walking. Awesome. And then also just to help me out as far as your field of study or area of interest, if it's, I see the library here, so and others. So if you have an area of study or field of interest, if you could put that in the chat as well. Nursing, okay, awesome. Biology, ESL, sure, yeah, great. Math and stats, awesome, okay. Okay, and I have specific examples. I just pulled them from courses that we've worked on, so hopefully there'll be an example that hits some of those areas of study. So I will get started. I'm just going to share my screen, and I'm working off of 2 screens, so if I'm not looking at you, I'm thinking about you. So what I will just, oh, I've got it up twice. Well, let's see where this goes. Can you see my shared screen? It should say H5P.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I am not the H5P expert, but I have been using H5P for a couple years now. I was first introduced to H5P by our OER courses administrator, Trevor Cunningham. And yeah, and so just a little bit about H5P. I thought this was so inspiring, that's why I included it. H5P's goal is to enable everyone to create better content faster and to empower everyone to create, share, and reuse interactive content. Like, who can't get behind that? Yeah, so that was their goal. I had to put it in there. So what is H5P? It's HTML5 content that can add interactions and creativity into websites, learning management systems, so OER courses, and publishing platforms, Pressbooks, which I'm here to talk about. H5P can also help ease some copyright issues, technical roadblocks, and compatibility between platforms. And I have included the website, and we can make this presentation available. Will you be sharing this PowerPoint? Yes, for sure. Yeah, right, Isaac, that's an okay. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and so the H5P website is also listed in the presentation. I'll talk a little bit more about, oh, is there a question? No? Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so that's the website, and I'll be actually going to the website during the presentation too, and I'll speak more about the learning management system as well. So there are many, oh, and actually what I was going to mention is before I started using H5P, whenever we needed to create interactives for our online courses, we always used to have to go to a graphics media designer to create those learning objects. And, you know, there's more, you know, hands in the recipe and things like that. And so what I really like about H5P is it, at a very fundamental level, can be super easy for anyone to just pick up and create their own. And they can also be very complex. So you can get that complexity, but you don't need a graphics media designer to get there, which is very, very handy when, you know, you don't have access to a graphics media designer. So there are many options for H5P. There are over 30 different content types with varying levels of difficulty. Some are super easy, and I'm going to go over like some of the easy ones, and some can get super complex, but they can be as complex as you want to like put into it, in the sense that you can create simulations, like a 20-minute simulation. We did that in a philosophy class, and like it's icing on the cake, but you know, using logic, solve this murder mystery, and you know, there's audio and video and things like that. So it can get super intense, and then it can be super easy at the most basic level. So I'm going to show you a little bit of both. There are course presentations that can be easily created, image hotspots, collages, dialogue cards, drag and drop. Like there's over 30, and so more than what I can go over today. And I probably, to be honest with you, have only used 20. And you know, there's some easy ones that I kind of like just always fall back on. Now there is an example of all the 30 content types on the H5P website, and I will be going there at some point. Actually, I hesitate to do that now because then I'll get lost in my presentation. So we'll get there. We'll get there eventually. Why would you want to even use H5P? So as I had mentioned before, you know, in a press, so my 100% of my H5P experience has been in UR courses. You can use H5P in UR courses. And so, you know, it's transferable in the sense that we create for fully online courses, online books. No, it's not Pressbooks, but it's kind of like the same principle on a very smaller project scale, of course. Sorry, I was just looking at the comments there. Yeah, and so why would you want to use them? What I find is I'm a visual learner, and so if I'm faced with pages and pages of things to read, I need sort of that visual sort of, you know, I need visuals. I'd rather like look at pictures than read. So it's an easy way to add visuals to your text if you are doing a lot of text. It keeps engagement while reading, and that's just my personal preference, but I'm sure there's others who feel the same way. It's another way to present content, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. You can use it as test your knowledge or learner self-check. And as I'd mentioned before, it can be very basic, like low on the Bloom's taxonomy of like, you know, fill in the blank, or it can get quite sophisticated, which is very exciting for anyone who, you know, wants to put the effort in. It can customize the learning experience so that you can kind of create, you know, a place for your reader to check to see if they're getting what it is that you're trying to convey via text. And it also can add low stake tasks for learners, which kind of keeps people on their toes. And there's like a whole host of other reasons. Those are just what I came up with. And I have to say, the courses that we have incorporated H5P just adds a second dimension to the course. It's just, you know, yes, we have video where you, you know, this is UR courses related, not Pressbooks related, but you know, there, when you're presenting material, you can do video and you can do audio, but you know, when you're creating a textbook, it would be kind of nice to add that secondary dimension. And then the stress of not having to do it right at the get-go, it could always be like a second phase to your textbook. Considerations to think about. So H5P, because it's so easy to use, has limitations. So for example, I was using it in a geography class. We were doing some maps and things like that. And the instructor wanted very robust feedback for the test your knowledge one that we were creating. And there's limitations in the sense that you can't have a paragraph of feedback. So, there's character limits, there's limits of each of these content types that has to be adhered to. And then when you want to push that limit, you can't, because that's when you'd have to create something on your own using a graphics media designer. So there are limitations, but the Pro, totally easy to use. They're device responsive. So last term, we rapidly developed an economics class, and like that class had I would say over 100 H5P interactives intertwined in all of the online content. And what's nice is it looks great on desktops, it looks great on laptops, it looks great on the phone. It's very device responsive, so that's awesome. User results can be stored. So from a textbook standpoint with Pressbooks, not sure if you'd be interested in that, but you would be able to see, I haven't really explored the results of what it looks like in Pressbooks. In your courses, because there's registered students, you see the student and their results. If it's, I'm assuming you just maybe get numbers of, how many attempted each of these interactives. And the good thing about H5P is whatever you create via your courses or even Pressbooks, you can easily download them and upload them to the other platforms. So kind of like double whammy, right? So all the time and effort you spend in creating something can maybe be reused in other aspects of your academic creative endeavors. Ideas, I put that in, every time I'm faced in an online course with tough concepts, maybe an H5P could help explain it better. Case studies, we had one course where there was a reoccurring case study theme, and so that was by using H5P course presentation, which I'll show you in a minute. It was a way to kind of like visually separate out that reoccurring theme in a way that from regular text, so that they're like, oh wait, we're going back to that case study. How does this unit relate back to that case study? And so it was a way of visually separating those out. And then also just whenever you need a break from text. And so even if you have text, I often, when I'm reading text from instructors, I might see a bulleted list. And as soon as I see that bulleted list and it translates to, oh, there's a picture for all of those, I'm like, H5P, that's an H5P opportunity. Because that way, instead of just reading the bulleted list, they're seeing the list, which is kind of, engaging. And then also don't be overwhelmed at what I'm about to show you, because you can start super easy. And I forgot to ask in the comments, how many of you have already used H5P? Maybe could you put that in the comments, in the chat? How many have already created H5P? And this is, okay, no. I've used them, lots of them, yay, okay, so then Marina, you could maybe show some of yours. Never, I'm not interested learning. And yeah, super basic. It can be super basic. I've seen them in classes I'm taking. Yeah, even my grade 12 student has, like, he's taking his online classes, and there's like the K to 12 systems using it. Experimented a tiny bit. Okay, great. Well, I hope I can show you some UR examples to get your creative outlets like buzzing. Okay, so in Pressbook, let's talk about Pressbooks. Before you can use H5P in Pressbooks, you have to activate it. And so on the side menu of Pressbooks, there is a plugin option. And when you click on that, there is an H5P listed, and you just have to hit activate. So it's super easy to enable H5P. In your courses, you actually have to request it. It's not open to everyone quite yet, because there's a lack of support for this type of thing. And so, we have to pick and choose what can be supported. So H5P in Pressbooks, you activate it yourself and get started right away. Once you activate it, you have to consent to using the H5P hub. I know nothing about the H5P hub, so I'm not sure if Isaac can have some information there for us after. But I consented, didn't read the terms of use. I'm assuming it's all on the up and up, since it's U of R endorsed. But you have to consent to using the hub. And but what I found in Pressbooks is whatever you create is added to your H5P content in Pressbooks. It shows up on the side and everything's numbered. So when I go into my Pressbooks, you can see I've downloaded about 20 H5Ps from various UR courses, online courses, and then I've uploaded them to Pressbooks, and you'll be seeing that shortly. And then once you have activated Pressbooks, you just have to hit the add new and start creating. So because as mentioned, there are 30 different content types, and I'll show you this when I end this presentation and go into Pressbooks. The H5P environment looks the exact same whether you're accessing it from Pressbooks or whether you're accessing it from your courses. And so I have a bit of a screenshot here just to show you like the top half of what you're going to see. But basically, it will list all the 30 different types of content, and then you have to get the content. So, you know, in your courses, it's all there for us, but in Pressbooks, if you wanted to use drag and drop, you just have to hit the little get button, and then it does its thing, and then you can use it and create with it. Or if you wanted to use interactive video or any of the content types, you would just hit that little get button. And you don't have to get them all at once. You just get them as you need them, and it's just a click. And then once you've got your interactives created, and I'll show you those in a few minutes, to add them, to get them from the Pressbooks library where they're all listed, where you've created them, to get them onto a page, each page will have, once you've activated that H5P plugin, will have an H5P button. And you just have to click on that, and it up pops your library, and then you can choose which interactive you want to show up on which Pressbook page. Super easy. How it will look to you as the author of the textbook is that second blue box that I have outlined. It'll say H5P ID equals 4 or H5P ID equals 10. They're just numbered. So if it's the fourth one you've created, that's what you'll see. But the user reading the book will be seeing the actual H5P, but you in the back end, in the admin side of it, in the dashboard area, will just see that. Super easy to add. So let's try it. Okay, I gotta switch screens here. Before we, yeah, so okay, just gonna, can I do this here? No, I gotta stop sharing. Sorry about that. Just gonna move this over. Any questions so far before I start getting into the Pressbook environment? If there is, just leave them in the chat. Not so far. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen again. Okay, can you see a browser screen now? Yeah, good. Okay, perfect. Okay, and so I am logged into Pressbooks, and I just created a Pressbooks called H5P examples, like not original at all. But you can see that I've got my side menu, and where you activate H5Ps in this plugin area. And so if I go there, you can see that this one is activated. I could deactivate it. And then on the side, you've got your H5P content. So I click on that, or I can go to all H5P content. These are the ones that I've uploaded from your courses. And so I probably won't have time to show you all of them, but hopefully we can get to some of them. And then to add new, it is super easy. So if I click on add new, this is sort of the H5P environment that you can see both in Pressbooks and if you use it in your courses. And you can see here, there are all these 30 different content types. So we have everything from collage to organizing your content by a column, fill in the blank, find the hotspot, you know, interactive video, mark the words, like the list goes on. And a lot of them are some of them are K to 12, but you know, a lot can be transferred to other situations. Like I think there's an advent calendar, not sure, you know, who would use that, but you know, yeah. And also too, what about choosing your own adventure type? Yes, that is called branch scenario. And I have one to show you at the very end. Super awesome. Yes, and there is a choose your own adventure one, and it can get as simple as you need it to get with like, here's the intro, now choose, and there's 2 choices, and it can get super complicated and very simulation type interactives. So if I wanted to show you a super simple one, and again, they're not all this simple, but you know, there's also multiple choice, personality quiz. To be honest, I have not tried that one. But what was the one I wanted to show you? It has the word drag in it. So you can also search because there's so many. Drag and drop, drag the words. It is drag the word, no. Yeah, drag the words is super easy. So I'll show you that one. Also, course presentation is a good, solid, like regular one as well. And you'll see some course presentations, but I'll just start with drag the words. So I've chosen that, and this is what they all look like. They're very fill in the blank. So I would give it a title, and this title would be more for you than for the students, but still make it meaningful. And you can see I've already typed some titles in here, but I will just type this one as test your knowledge. I've already done this, so, but you can type whatever you want in that. The task description is already there for you, but you can change it. And I have changed it before, depending on the situation. You might have very specific information that you want to give students before they even get into whatever it is that they, the interactive. But, you know, generally speaking, if you're just doing some quick ones, you can leave that. And then this one is so easy. It's like you just copy and paste, and then it's just like everyone's wowed, like you've done like the greatest thing. So if I just have to go, I'm going to go to the internet, and I'm just going to grab like text. So let's say you had a paragraph. I'll just grab this, copy it, go back to my H5P. You know, I'm just going to paste my text. And this one at the super easy. All you have to do is put stars around whatever you want to be a fill in the blank. So, you know, if you have something that you wanted to have students do a self-check or anything like that, you would just put asterisks around the words that you want to show up as the drag and drops. And that's it. And there's some other settings, but generally when I'm creating H5Ps the first time, I just fill in the minimal blanks, see where I go. And there is some documentation that can help you with that. Usually the defaults are okay. I would always try it as if you were the reader or the student, just to make sure it's going to behave the way you want it to behave. And you might have to tweak some of the settings, but most oftentimes they're just fine. And there is a create button. So I'm just going to hit create. And so this is what it would look like, but I haven't added it to a Pressbook page. So you've got your paragraph and you've got your drag and drops. Students can hit check. And if I would have gotten them wrong, it would show them the solution. So very interactive. They can try it as many times as they want. We've had it in courses where, you know, instructors want to add it to the grade book. Yes, it's an okay idea, but students always get 100 because they can always retry. So it's more for engagement than, you know, grading purposes. Yeah. So that's as easy it gets to create one. And they're all like that. Even the most complicated ones are really just fill in the blank. It's the hidden secret. Okay, so let me just go back to my presentation here. Oh, no, actually, I don't want to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back to my dashboard, because now I have some U of R examples of those ones that I imported, just to give you an idea of what they look like if you were using them in a textbook. So I'm going to go to this tab here. So I just pulled in a few different types. As I had mentioned, there's 30. So one is summary. Can you add unused words? No, you can't. You see, this is the limitation I was talking about. It's like, no, you can't. So that customization is just not there. However, there's another one called, I can't remember, drag the words. Yeah, I can't remember which one's which, but there is one where you can, it's not as easy to create like the one I showed you, where you put stars around it, but there is one, I can't remember what it's called, where I think it's just called drag and drop, where you decide on the background, you decide on all the words, whether they can be repeated or not, and you customize all of the words, and then they drag and drop onto an image or onto a chart. And I have an example to show you of that type one. So yeah, so to answer your question, sometimes there's limitations, but then there might be another content type that could maybe address that. Okay, so let's go through a few of these. Can you add? Oh, yeah, you're welcome. So summary. So this one's super easy as well. It's like as easy as the last one I showed you. I just pulled these out of an anthropology class where, you know, I can see something like this at the end of a chapter in a textbook, things like that. So this one is choose the correct statement, and you have full control over what each of these statements are. So, you know, without reading, I'm just going to guess. Oh, I got it wrong. Oh, crud. Okay, got that one right. So you see where I'm going, and it tells the student or the learner right away, you know, whether they're getting them right or wrong. And then again here, choose the correct statement. Heritage is not based on values. Heritage, you know, this all came from her unit on cultural heritage. So yeah, so that one is a very easy one to start with. That one is summary. Dialogue cards, another great one. So I pulled this one out of a Japanese course. Now, also these interactives can have audio, can have video, and those ones get a little more added steps to create, but again, not very difficult to create. So this one is, please review the dialogue cards, listen to the sound clip and guess the meaning, then turn the card to see if your prediction was correct. What's nice about these dialogue cards is you can create stacks of them and students can retry, and it, again, customizing their learning, where as they're going through these cards, they can choose whether they got it right or they got it wrong, and then they can retake this too. So, you know, I'm thinking for like a psychology class with, you know, any kind of foundational class where there's like rote memorization, something like this could be very handy. This one does have sound. You probably won't be able to hear it. So the instructor has said the word, and then you see the word in its alphabet letters, kanji, and then when they flip it, they get the answer and what it means, and then they can choose whether they got it right or wrong, and that kind of keeps a tally, and then students can retry until they get them all right. So that's dialogue cards. And then the back end of this is very easy. You know, it is literally fill in the blank. All of these are fill in the blank. Flashcards, very similar to dialogue cards, except what I find with those is students have to type the answers instead of just click. So a little bit more work for the student. Flashcards looks a little bit different. So again, I just took this out of an anthropology class, but is this item natural, cultural, or living heritage? And then the students would type in whether they think this is. So I'm going to guess this is natural. Did I get it right? Yeah. Cultural. Oh, now you really have unintelligent. Oh, and there's only two in this one. I thought there'd be a third. Yeah, so that's the flashcard. But as you can see, it's a visual way of presenting material. So you have to find the images. The other thing I wanted to mention at the very beginning of the presentation, I mentioned that this can help with copyright in the sense that when you're creating an H5P and you're adding media, specifically images, or even, I think most other kinds of media, thinking audio, yeah, usually, and it's always in a different spot depending on the content type, it will ask you what the copyright is and where you got it, what the source is. And so as you're creating these, you mindfully are thinking, I need to find Creative Commons images, and I should, be picking something that I'm allowed to use. And then you're actually picking it right within the H5P. And at the very end, it just aggregates it all nice in this little rights of use box. And then if you click on it, let's say you've used, now this one only has 2 images, but let's say you use something with 40 images. It just collates them all nicely, tells you what the copyright is that you've chosen, like that the image had, and where, and the source. So it can help you keep things organized from that front. Okay. Timeline. Let's go to that one. That one's it. This one looks like you've spent hours creating it, and it's fill in the blank. This one was from a business class where we were just talking about the generations. And again, you choose, you type up, like, fill in the blank, type the year, what it is about, whatever it is. Now, and it doesn't even, timeline doesn't even have to be like traditional timeline. This one is, but you can even use it to present, process, the timeline of like, like a process. It doesn't have to even be date related. However, there is a place for the date, so you'd have to put something in there. But why I included this one is you can see there's images that you pull from that are showing up in the background. There's images showing up in the foreground. Even these little green boxes can have images. We created one with a timeline of Louis Riel at the Battle of Batoche, is it? And it was very neat in the sense that we used Creative Commons images. It kind of like made the story come alive, and even to the detail of having these little tiny boxes be images. It was great. Yeah, but I included this as an example. Sometimes the images that you use in H5Ps you upload, so you take a copy of them and you upload them. But then other times in certain content types, you are just linking to outside links. And so the timeline is one of these. And you can see here, like, I did not download that image and upload it. I just found a link to that image and added it into the H5P, and it shows up that way. And then the ramifications of that is links can break, just like in anything. So that's exactly what happened under Generation Z with this one here. So, at the time of creating this H5P, this was a valid link, but for some reason it broke. And so that can happen with your H5Ps, is certain aspects of them can break, but that is the nature of the internet, right? Just even within your Pressbook, when you're using external links, you could have that happen. So that's a timeline. Hotspots. So I pulled one from Japanese. This one's kind of fun, where we took Van Gogh's bedroom and all aspects of the bedroom to learn the Japanese words for picture, lamp. And how this came about was I was reading her vocab list. I'm like, oh, I think there's a Van Gogh picture that kind of has everything in it. So sometimes you have these aha moments. Also too, when you're faced with trying to, I know we have some math in here and biology, things like that. This economics one is a good example. When faced with, in a book where you're trying to explain everything, like point D is da 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 da, point C is da da da, and the line from here to there. As you're trying to explain it just with text, it would be so nice, and that's exactly what we did here, is to take that graph that's very static and make it engaging by putting hotspots right on the graph, so that as the learner is reading about it, they can check to see if they're looking at the right line. So that might come in handy for certain disciplines. And so that's exactly what we did here. Now, also too, you can take it up even another notch by not only including text of what this is about, but you can even incorporate video. And so that's exactly what we did here in a poli-sci class, where it was, and of course, so this is the House of Commons. And of course, after we did this, NFB put out this like wonderful virtual immersive House of Commons learning object, but some disciplines might not have that for a certain niche where you have to create your own. And so, we didn't know about that one at the time of creating this one, but you can kind of have a learner be able to explore something on their own in the order that they kind of want to go in themselves. And then with this one, just as an example, under pages, you can also include links to videos, which is kind of nice. For one course that was not a UVR course that I was involved with, but more of a research course, there was one whole unit that was like the life cycle of a research project. And there was, I can't remember how many points on this life cycle. And we took like 8 pages of Word documents of talking about this life cycle. And we got it down to a very engaging image where the learner could click on each part of that cycle and then watch something about it, read something about it. And so it can be very powerful. So that is hotspots. Also too, one that I didn't include here is, these are just sort of informational hotspots, but there is one where you can, I know in a geography class we used it where they had like a geographical map of Saskatchewan and they had to find the triple divide. So you can literally have like right and wrong answers on a map as well, or on an image. And so students could then try to pick the right answer on a visual too, which is quite interesting. I tried to get permission to use that one, but I hadn't heard in time. Otherwise, I would show it to you. So that's hotspots. Image juxtaposition. This one's so easy. It's just like find 2 images. So we use this in a women and gender studies class about the women's movement then and the women's movement now. And this is just, just a different way of presenting an image, which I thought I'd just throw in there. It's super easy to create. Course presentations, which is a very, very common one. It's kind of like PowerPoint, but then you can add in, H5P can be very layered in nature. So like I had shown you the summary and I had shown you drag and drop the words. Well, you can take those 30 content types, or some of them at least, and you can not layer them, but you can place them inside a course presentation. So you can present some material, think of like a PowerPoint where you present material slide by slide. I can just show you here. This one's from economics. So like this first slide is just text, right? But you could have like a number of text slides. And then within the presentation, you can add multiple choice, fill in the blank, mark the words, things like that. And so you can bring in other H5Ps into this H5P, which can like down the rabbit hole of H5P, right? Where do you stop? And so, you wouldn't want to make these too long for engagement. Like, I don't know if I'd do more than 12 slides, like, but you have that option, right? Yeah, and then, so this one just, what's this one on? This one is on financial numeracy. And so it asks the learner a series of questions, which they can check as they go along. And at the very end, they get a bit of a summary of what, how they did. And then even within the course presentation, you can also like leave information buttons, and they can be more graphs, they can be a video. And so it can, total creative outlet for some people. So there's that. That's course presentation. This one was that case study. Each of the 13 weeks of this particular course went back to how does it relate to COVID-19. And so we just separated out that case study, visually different. And so then we always use this sort of look for when when it came time to bringing them back to that case study. Again, this one's 12 slides. I can tell right away here that these are just, you know, they don't have any questions. There's a little bit of a circle on this one, whereas you can see this doesn't have any. But I brought this one in just to show you how it essentially is like PowerPoint. They're clicking through it, but then at least they're clicking instead of just reading, they're click, read, click, read. Also too, you can incorporate links to other videos. You can actually embed videos in a course presentation as well, you know, from YouTube, things like that. We did some links to some outside relevant content. And so, yeah, the sky's the limit, really. So that's course presentation. Drag and drop. Oh, this is the one, I can't remember who asked whether you can add words, Hugo. And so this one is where you create the drag and drop, like the words on the side. So we did this for a time exercise for Japanese. You know, here's the drag and drop aspect of it. But here you can see it's kind of small, sorry about that. This graphic behind here, increased demand for loanable funds, decreased demand, we added that to the H5P. That's sort of like the background, and then students can then take what it is they're learning and then, you know, move them to the right category and then check it. So I'll just, without, you know, get the idea here. I'm gonna get this all wrong. Dr. King will not be happy. Too right. And they can retry, et cetera, et cetera. And then last but not least, the branch scenario. Someone asked about that, the choose your own adventure. And so we did that in a philosophy class. And the example, and I'll go to the H5P website after, this is my last thing I'll show you in Pressbooks. The branch scenario on the H5P website is very interesting as well. It's from a social work perspective where they have video, it's all done in video, where, you know, the learner is faced with like a client meeting, and so then they get to choose, you know, they knock on the door, and then the question is, how would you address the client? And then it gives them options, and they could pick, and then they would get the answer of how they should address the client, things like that. So it can be very simulation in nature. So I just have a couple of branch scenarios. The branch scenario is the only one that I couldn't seamlessly upload and download from your courses. So I'm not sure what's going on there. So I actually have to show you from your courses. If you create a branch scenario in Pressbooks, it'll be fine. And if you create a branch scenario in your courses, it'll be fine. I just technically have probably made a mistake in the upload and download. So, but I will show you those. So we used it in philosophy. Now at a basic level, this is it a triangle is a choose your adventure of maybe like 2 choices. So it's super easy. I'll just click on that. I might have to log in. Yeah. Okay, so is it a triangle? So this is what the choose your own adventure branch scenario kind of looks like. You can customize everything that's here, the image, the title, etc. And if I click on start, so this is Eric Hanna. He teaches Philosophy 100 online. And so he has a bit of an intro, very short, 50 seconds. And so he's introducing the concept of what is a triangle. And then students like move through this branch scenario activity. And then they're posed with a choice, like choose your own adventure. Do you face the dragon? Do you run in the opposite direction? So the choice is, do you think I can do it? Yes or no? So I don't know, I'm gonna pick yes, see where we go. Using these lines to create a triangle that has 3 right angles, try as many times as you want. When you're finished, click proceed. So I know it's impossible, little heads up. So students would be trying this until they go crazy. Kidding. So click, when you're finished, click proceed. So I'll click next. So then after you click next, it goes into a bit of a explanation of, what to think about a triangle, and perspective is everything, et cetera, et cetera. And then the instructor talks a little bit more. And then he, I won't show it to you, but you get the idea. So that's branch scenario. It kind of guides the students through a scenario. However, they get to kind of choose what direction they want to go to. And it can all lead to the same end point. So that's branch scenario. And they can be very simple with like just one branch. And they can all, the example on the H5P website even has students sort of deciding on their own what content to read first, second, third, fourth. So it can even be as minimal as just them deciding what they want to read in what order. Could be at a very simple level. But I'll just go back just to show you that we did create a murder mystery, not for the faint at heart, that's 20 minutes long. It's a scenario with like 1 million branches, where it's kind of like at the end of a unit that they learn on logic. And so when they begin, there's a bit of an H5P, and this is where that layering, where you can have H5Ps within H5Ps. So we have some review questions before they start the mystery, to see how they do. And then they get into the mystery, and there's characters and music, and I'm telling you, exactly like Clue, but using philosophy concepts. So very, very fun. And he's had really good reactions from students for this. So yeah, okay. And so just before I stop talking, I did want to go to the H5P website just to give you, so anything H5P that I have learned has been from the website. It's absolutely excellent. And so there's 2 places I want to show you where you can go. The first place is examples and downloads. So if you go to the example page, you can see here there's some featured content types, course presentation being one of the more common ones. I didn't even get into showing you what interactive video is, but you can have like a lecture and then have questions right in the lecture for the students to answer. But here are all the different content types. What's really nice about this is, if you're struggling to find like what it is you want to use, it will give you an example. So if I go to drag the, well, I showed you drag the words. Let's go to fill in the, well, what should we go to? Let's go to documentation tool. I've used that for study guides. It's really neat. You go to the content type, it gives you an example of the content. So this is sort of like a guided activity. So we've used this for study guides and economics. And then it shows you exactly what it is, the content type is. This one's kind of boring. So let's just go back. Let me pick something different, like image pairing. Here's a good one. So drag images from left to match them with corresponding images on the right. And so it gives you one sample of what that content type is. And a lot of the examples are like K to 12, but think outside the box. Yeah, and so this would be the example of what this one is, which is image pairing. And again, there's limitations. I think I tried this one in Japanese, but for me, creating it, you literally had to upload 1 million different images. And at that point, I was like, let's just see if there's something already on the internet that already exists for this. So you kind of have to weigh the options of how much work you want to put into it too. So yeah, and then the other place on the H5P website, let me just go back here. So the example page is invaluable. That's how you find out what your options are. But then once let's say you really wanted to use dialogue cards and there's a few more fill in the blank boxes, then you're not really sure where to go with it. The next place I want to show you is I think it's under documentation. Yes, under documentation, there is tutorials for authors. And this is the presentation slides that I've since vacated. So you don't have to go finding this. The link is in there. This goes through every single 30 content types, and it will show you exactly how to create it from scratch. It shows you right from that first page to this is what you fill in the blanks, this is what to consider, you know, absolutely everything about this particular H5P type. So that's how I've learned it. And that's all I have, unless there's questions in the comments. How'd I do?
One question.
45 minutes. Sorry about that. It's a long time to listen.
There is a question from Hugo.
Hugo, are H5P and Pressbooks open source? Well, that's a good question. So H5P, I'm just going to share my screen here. I think it's open source. I think it's community community driven. Like I do believe it was invented by someone specifically, but it's community driven. I'll just go back to the H5P website. It is used by higher ed, K to 12, thousands of, like millions of websites. I believe it's a community of developers, yeah. Any other questions? And actually, sorry to interrupt, Kate. The one thing I wanted to say, it's open source, but it can only be used for educational purposes. I did have like an organization say, hey, can we use, and I think when I read the terms of use, it's not for like commercial purposes. But sorry, Kate, go ahead.
Thanks, no worries. I was just wondering if you could speak to how stable H5P is, like in terms of the coding. Like if we include something like this in any of our, I don't know, I probably try to use it in LibGuides because I'm a librarian. That's my platform mainly. I am interested in creating an open textbook at some point, but I'm not there yet. But if we create something and use a lot of H5P in 5 years, is it still going to be functional?
Well, that's a good question. You know, back in the day, you know, before H5P, it was Flash objects. Well, we know that's dead, right? And so can we say that anything will live forever? No. But from what we've been using it at the U of R now for a few years, I'm thinking 2018, you know, I can't remember when. We were at First Nations University in that staging. So I would say at least 3 years now. And it's been fairly stable from like the U of R student side of it. There was one semester where there was a UR courses upgrade that kind of wreaked a bit of havoc where students had to clear their cache. But other than that, I think it's okay. You know, I'm not the technical side of things, but what I do know, just even in my experience with that economics class, I tested it on the phone. Because like he had so many H5Ps that I thought, and it was for core concepts, although he had the core concepts in the text themselves, which I think is important. You never want to like only have it in just the H5P. But you know, I tested everything on the phone and it looked great on my Android. Can't speak for Apple. But very responsive. Even those, you know, the drag and drop one that I showed you worked in the, yeah. So as far as I know, it's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and then also too, I wanted to mention, you know, the interactive video I didn't really get into, and the reason for that is because now that we have Kaltura Premium at the U of R, there are interactives within Kaltura that we wouldn't even need H5P for. So if I was doing interactive video, I don't think I'd go the H5P route. I think I would go the Kaltura route because there's quizzing available in that. So yeah. So some of them I wouldn't even use.
So thank you, Michelle. Does anybody have questions for Michelle? Any final questions?
And one last thing. Before I started creating H5Ps in our office, we always had co-op students, and it's so easy that you just tell a co-op student to look at these examples, and the co-op students were even creating H5Ps for us. So super easy, super easy. Fill in the blanks. So hire some co-op students to create your H5Ps. And one of our co-op students created that massive 20-minute murder mystery. So. All right, well, thank you so much. I really can say that including H5Ps in our online courses, I believe has helped make some of the content come alive a little bit more, adding that other dimension. And I'm sure it would be the same for a textbook.
Okay, well, thank you, Michelle. Thank you for your very interesting presentation.
Thank you.
Get our juices flowing. And thank you, everybody, for showing up. And we will have this posted, and the Michelle's presentation, the video and her presentation will be posted on the website. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.